I thought I had the perfect life, successful business, beautiful wife, and a miracle son after years of heartbreak. Then I found a hotel key card hidden in my wife's nightstand. And everything I believed about my family turned out to be a lie. What I discovered next would destroy me completely, but also reveal who I really was when everything was on the line. My name is Ethan Thorne. I'm 47 years old, and I've been managing food production contracts for 2 decades. Built my business from scratch, supplying restaurants across 3 states. I thought I had everything figured out. Successful career, beautiful wife, and what I believe was my miracle son. After years of heartbreak, the morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in October. I was making coffee in our kitchen, the one Alara and I renovated 3 years ago when Leo turned 1. She'd insisted on granite countertops that cost more than my first car. Alara walked in wearing that silk robe I bought her for Christmas. Her auburn hair still messy from sleep. She looked beautiful, but something felt different. There was this energy around her like she was humming with electricity. "Morning, honey," Alara said, reaching for her mug. Her voice had this sing-song quality that immediately put me on edge. "Morning," I replied, watching her movements. Everything seemed too choreographed, too perfect. She started making her tea, the same chamomile blend she'd been drinking for months. But today, she was different, lighter somehow, like she was carrying a secret that made her feel powerful. "Leo's still sleeping?" she asked, stirring her tea with deliberate slowness. "Yeah, he had a rough night. Kept asking for you around bedtime." Alara's hand paused for just a fraction of a second. "Well, you know how these industry networking events run late. I told you I'd be home around midnight." I nodded, but something cold settled in my stomach. She'd come home at 12:30 and I'd been awake. Heard her fumbling with the keys. Heard her shower running for 20 minutes. "How was the event?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Oh, you know how it is. Same conversations about supply chain optimization." Alara laughed, but sounded forced though. "Gideon Voss was there. Your dad's old friend from the construction days. He asked about you." Gideon Voss, Dad's longtime buddy who'd been like an uncle to me growing up. The man who taught me to drive, who'd been best man at my parents' wedding. Gideon was at a food service networking event. I asked. That didn't make sense. Gideon ran a construction company. Alara's spoon clinked against her mug too loudly. Well, he was there with someone from his company. They're looking into cafeteria services for their job sites. The lies sat between us like smoke. Gideon had his own guy for that stuff. Had used the same catering service for 15 years. I knew because I tried to bid for his business 3 times. That's great, I said. Finally, maybe I should give him a call. Oh, I wouldn't bother, Alara said quickly. He seemed pretty settled with his current arrangement. Another lie. And this one she delivered with a smile that never reached her eyes. I finished my coffee in silence, listening to Leo's little feet hitting the floor upstairs. But something had shifted. Some fundamental truth had changed, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face what it meant. The rest of that Tuesday crawled by like molasses. I couldn't focus on anything at work. Kept checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for something I couldn't name. My assistant, Clara, noticed I was off. Asked if I was feeling all right. I told her I was fine, but we both knew it was a lie. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided to swing by Leo's daycare early. Needed to see his face. Needed something real and honest in my day. The kid always had this way of grounding me, reminding me what actually mattered. Daddy. Leo ran toward me with his arms wide, nearly knocking over another kid in his excitement. His teacher, Madame Dubois, smiled and walked over with his backpack. He had a good day today, she said, though he did ask about his mommy a lot. Said she's been working late and he misses her bedtime stories. My chest tightened. Leo was 3, but he wasn't stupid. Kids notice when their routines change, when the people they love start disappearing. Yeah, she's been busy with work lately, I said, lifting Leo into my arms. On the drive home, Leo chattered about his day, about the finger painting they'd done, about how his friend Jake brought cookies to share. Normal kid stuff that should have made me smile. Instead, all I could think about was Alara's lie about Gideon being at that networking event. When we got home, I settled Leo in front of his favorite cartoon and went to our bedroom. I wasn't planning to snoop. Wasn't planning to become that guy who goes through his wife's things. But something pulled me toward her nightstand. The top drawer held the usual stuff. Hand cream, reading glasses, a few magazines. But underneath an old issue of Good Housekeeping, my fingers found something that made my blood run cold. A hotel keycard. The Marriott Downtown Room 412 from last Tuesday night. I stared at that piece of plastic like it was a snake ready to strike. Alara had told me she was at a client dinner last Tuesday. Said she'd eaten too much pasta and felt sick. That's why she'd come home late and gone straight to bed. My hands were shaking as I put the key card back exactly where I found it. This wasn't about business dinners or networking events. This was about hotel rooms and lies and the slow destruction of everything I'd built my life around. That evening, Alara came home around 7, carrying takeout from that Italian place on 5th Street. She kissed my cheek and ruffled Leo's hair, acting like the perfect wife and mother. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, unpacking containers of pasta and salad. "Fine," I said, watching her movements. "How about yours? Any interesting meetings?" "Oh, you know how it is. Lots of paperwork, a few phone calls. Nothing too exciting." She opened a bottle of wine, poured herself a generous glass. "I'm exhausted." I wanted to ask her about the hotel key card, wanted to demand an explanation, to give her a chance to tell me the truth. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the last desperate hope that I was wrong about everything. Instead, I played with Leo while Alara scrolled through her phone at the dinner table. Watched her smile at messages I couldn't see. Watch her type responses with the kind of care you reserve for someone special. Later that night, after Leo was asleep, I lay in bed next to my wife and felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. She was right there, close enough to touch, but she might as well have been on another planet. And for the first time in our 10 years of marriage, I wondered if the woman lying next to me had ever really loved me at all. I didn't sleep that night. By Thursday morning, I made my decision. Time to confront Alara and give her one chance to tell me the truth. She was in the bathroom getting ready for work when I walked in. Her reflection in the mirror looked startled when she saw me. "Ethan, you scared me," Alara said, applying lipstick. "You look terrible. Didn't you sleep?" "We need to talk," I said, crossing my arms. Something shifted in her expression. The mask she'd been wearing seemed to slip. "About what?" "About Gideon. About hotel rooms. About where you've really been spending your evenings." I pulled the hotel key card from my pocket and held it up. The Marriott Downtown, room 412, last Tuesday night. Alara stared at the key card like it was evidence of murder, which it was. Evidence of our marriage's murder. "Ethan, listen." "No," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "You listen. I've been patient. Made excuses for your behavior. But I'm done pretending." Alara's composure finally split. Her face flushed red and venom crept into her voice. "Don't be mad," she said like she was talking to a child having a tantrum. The condescension hit me like a physical blow. After everything, she was treating me like I was being unreasonable. "Don't be mad," I repeated, feeling something cold settle in my chest. "Don't be surprised when I'm not here." I walked out, leaving her standing there with her mouth open. I'd given her a chance to explain, to show remorse. Instead, she treated me like an inconvenience. Downstairs, Leo was eating cereal, humming to himself. He looked up when I entered. "Morning, Daddy. You look different today." "Different how, buddy?" "Stronger," he said, then went back to his cereal. Out of the mouth of babes. My 3-year-old could see what I've been blinded to for months. I wasn't the same man who'd been making excuses. That version of Ethan Thorne was gone. 20 minutes later, Alara came downstairs, her composure restored. She kissed Leo's head and grabbed her purse like nothing had happened. "We'll talk tonight," she said, but it sounded more like a threat. "Yes," I replied. "We will." After she left, I called my brother Caleb. The old Ethan would have suffered in silence, but that man was dead, and the one who'd taken his place was ready for war. That evening, Alara came home with Chinese takeout and a fake smile. She'd had all day to prepare her defense. "Leo's upstairs playing," I said as she unpacked containers. "Good. That gives us time to clear up this morning's misunderstanding. She poured wine, hands perfectly steady. Ethan, I know how that hotel key must have looked. Stop. I held up my hand. Before you say another word, you should know I've spent the day making phone calls. Her smile faltered. What kind of phone calls? I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. The screen showed a detailed report from a private investigator. Photos, timestamps, credit card records, everything in black and white. Alara went pale scrolling through the evidence. Pictures of her entering the Marriott with Gideon. Images at restaurants, holding hands, kissing, bank statements showing charges I didn't recognize. You hired someone to follow me, she whispered. I hired someone to find a truth. Something you're incapable of telling. She closed the laptop and looked at me with pure fury that I dared expose her lies. So what now, Ethan? You going to play the wounded husband? I'm not playing anything. I am the victim of your lies and betrayal. Alara laughed harshly. Our family. You mean where you work 60 hours a week and expect me to raise your son alone? My son. The words hit like ice water. What do you mean, my son? Pure panic flickered across her face before the mask returned. I mean our son. Obviously, too late. I'd seen the truth in that unguarded moment. Leo's birth timing, her secrecy during pregnancy, the fact he looked nothing like me. How long, Alara? How long with Gideon? She stood, smoothing her skirt for battle. Longer than you think. It's been the only thing keeping me sane in this prison you call a marriage. The cruelty was breathtaking. This wasn't the woman I'd married. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house now. Her composure shattered. You can't throw me out. Not anymore. You chose Gideon over our family. She grabbed her purse, then turned back with venom. You'll regret this, Ethan. I'll make sure you lose everything. After she left, I checked on sleeping Leo, clutching his stuffed bear. Looking at his peaceful face, I made a promise. Whatever happened, I'd protect him. Even if he wasn't biologically mine, he was my son in every way that mattered. But first, I had calls to make, starting with a lawyer, ending with a DNA test. The DNA results arrived 3 days later. I sat in my truck outside the lab, hands shaking as I opened the envelope. The words blurred together at first, but the conclusion was crystal clear. Leo wasn't my biological son. I'd expected it, but seeing it in black and white still felt like a punch to the gut. 3 years of midnight feedings, first words, scraped knees, and bedtime stories. 3 years of being his daddy, and now science was telling me he belonged to Gideon Voss. But as I sat there staring at the numbers, something shifted inside me. Biology didn't make a father. Gideon might have contributed DNA, but I'd contributed everything else. I was the one who taught Leo to tie his shoes, who kissed his forehead when he had nightmares, who would die before letting anyone hurt him. That evening, I picked up Leo from daycare like nothing had changed. Because for him, nothing had. He was still the same little boy who ran to me with open arms, who called me daddy, who trusted me to keep him safe. Daddy, you look sad again, Leo said as I buckled him into his car seat. I'm not sad, buddy. Just thinking about mommy. The innocence in his voice nearly broke me. Yeah, about mommy. Is she coming home soon? I looked into his trusting brown eyes, Gideon's eyes, I realized now, and made a decision that would define the rest of our lives. We'll see, Leo. But no matter what happens, I'll always be your daddy. You understand that? He nodded seriously. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, son. That night, after putting Leo to bed, I called my lawyer. Ingrid Falk had been recommended by Caleb, and she had a reputation for being ruthless in custody cases. Mr. Thorne, I've reviewed the materials you sent over, Ingrid said. This is going to be complicated. The DNA results complicate things, but they don't eliminate your parental rights entirely. What do you mean? You've been the child's father for 3 years. You're on the birth certificate. In many states that carries significant weight regardless of biology. We can fight for custody based on the best interest of a child. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in weeks. What are our chances? Good. If we can prove that removing the child from your care would be detrimental to his well-being, and given that his mother was conducting an affair with his biological father while married to you, we have strong grounds to argue instability on their part. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd confronted Alara just days ago, and felt something I hadn't felt since this nightmare began. Not quite hope, but determination. They might have destroyed my marriage, but they weren't going to destroy my relationship with my son. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Every soccer practice I'd attended, every doctor's appointment, every parent-teacher conference. 3 years of being Leo's father in every way except biology. Gideon and Alara might have thought they could waltz back into our lives and claim what was theirs. But they were about to learn that being a parent was about more than DNA. It was about love, commitment, and showing up every single day. And in that contest, I'd already won. 2 weeks later, I sat in Ingrid's office with a stack of documents 3 inches thick. Bank statements, photographs, school records, medical files, everything that proved I'd been Leo's real father for 3 years. "This is impressive, Ethan," Ingrid said, flipping through the evidence. "You've documented everything perfectly, but I need to prepare you for what's coming." "What do you mean?" "Alara's hired counsel, too. Julian Brandt from Brandt and Associates. He's known for playing dirty in custody cases, and he'll use the DNA results to argue that Gideon is the natural father with superior rights." The name hit me like ice water. Julian Brandt was the lawyer who'd helped my ex-business partner steal half my client list 5 years ago. The man was a shark who'd sell his own mother for billable hours. "There's something else," Ingrid continued. "Alara's claiming you were abusive, emotionally manipulative. She's painting herself as a victim who is afraid to leave." The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. That's complete garbage. Ask anyone who knows us. That's exactly what we're going to do. But Ethan, you need to understand that custody battles can get ugly fast. They're going to attack your character, your fitness as a parent. Anything they can use to make you look bad. Let them try. I've got 3 years of being the best father I know. How to be. Ingrid smiled grimly. That's the attitude we need. But there's one more thing we should discuss. Gideon Voss has resources. Construction business, property, money. He can provide financial advantages you might not be able to match. You think that matters to Leo? You think he cares about Gideon's bank account when he's scared in the middle of the night? No, but judges sometimes do. We need to be prepared for that argument, too. I left Ingrid's office with a clearer picture of the war ahead. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about survival. Alara and Gideon had resources, but I had something they didn't. 3 years of actually being Leo's father. That evening, I was helping Leo with a puzzle when he looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. "Daddy, are you going to go away like Mommy did?" The question hit me harder than any legal threat. "No, buddy. I'm not going anywhere. Promise." I knelt down to his level and took his small hands in mine. "I promise, Leo. No matter what happens, I'll always be your daddy." He threw his arms around my neck, and I held him tight, breathing in that little boy smell of shampoo and graham crackers. Alara and Gideon might have Gideon's DNA, but this moment, this trust, this pure love, belonged to me, and I'd fight hell itself before I let anyone take it away. The custody hearing was scheduled for next month. Until then, every day with Leo felt precious, like something that might disappear at any moment. But I refused to let fear control our lives. Instead, I focused on being present. Really present. Reading extra bedtime stories, taking him to the park, teaching him to throw a baseball, building memories that no court document could erase. Because whatever happened in that courtroom, Leo would always know that someone had loved him enough to fight for him. And sometimes that's all a father can give a son. 3 weeks into the legal battle, the scandal hit my business like a freight train. Word travels fast in the food service industry, especially when it involves adultery and paternity disputes. My biggest client, Henderson Hotels, called an emergency meeting. "Ethan, we've heard some concerning rumors," said Arthur Henderson, the chain CEO, as we sat in his sterile conference room. "Something about personal issues affecting your business operations." I kept my voice steady, professional. "My personal life has never interfered with my work, Mr. Henderson. You know, my track record. That was before you were splashed across social media as part of a custody scandal. Our brand can't be associated with this kind of drama." My blood ran cold. Social media. Arthur slid his tablet across the table. Alara's social media page filled the screen with a post that made my stomach drop. Praying for strength as I fight for my son against a man who's trying to keep a child from his real father. Sometimes love means making hard choices. Hashtag strong mother, hashtag fighting for family. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments and hundreds of shares. She'd painted herself as the victim and me as the villain, all while conveniently leaving out the adultery and lies. Mr. Henderson, this is completely one-sided. She's manipulating the narrative. Ethan, I'm sorry. We're going to have to suspend our contract pending resolution of this matter. We can't risk the negative publicity. I lost 3 more clients that week. 15 years of building my reputation. Gone because my cheating wife decided to wage a social media war. But I wasn't going down without a fight. That evening, I called my old Army buddy, Marcus Shaw, who now ran a crisis management firm. Ethan, brother, I heard about the situation. This is a hit job, plain and simple. But we can fight back. All carefully and strategically. We document everything. Build a counter-narrative based on facts, not emotion. But first, you need to disappear from social media completely. Don't respond to anything she posts. Don't defend yourself publicly. Let your lawyer handle the legal stuff while we handle the public perception. Marcus was right, but staying silent while she destroyed my reputation was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every instinct screamed at me to tell my side of the story, to expose her lies for what they were. Instead, I focused on what mattered, being the best father I could be to Leo during the time I'd left with him. Because deep down, I was terrified the court would side with Gideon's biological claim and Alara's victim narrative. Leo sensed something was wrong during dinner that night. Daddy, why do people keep staring at us at the grocery store? The innocence in his question broke my heart. At 3 years old, he was already feeling the effects of his mother's public campaign against me. Some people like to gossip, buddy, but it doesn't matter what they think. What matters is that I love you. Are you going to go away? I knelt down to his level, looking into those brown eyes that weren't mine, but somehow still were. Leo, listen to me carefully. No matter what happens, no matter where either of us ends up, I will always be your daddy. Distance can't change that. Courts can't change that. Nothing can change that. He threw his small arms around my neck, and I held him tight, breathing in his little boy's scent, memorizing the feeling of his heartbeat against my chest. Later that night, after Leo was asleep, I sat in my home office, surrounded by legal documents and financial statements. My business was crumbling. My reputation was in tatters, and I might lose the most important person in my life, but I wasn't broken. Bent, maybe, bloodied, definitely, but not broken. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a social media response, not a public defense, but a detailed timeline of every moment I'd been Leo's father. Every doctor's appointment, every scraped knee I'd kissed better. Every night I'd stayed up with him when he was sick. If they wanted to fight dirty, I'd fight back with the truth. And the truth was simple. I might not be Leo's biological father, but I was his dad in every way that mattered. The courtroom felt like a battlefield. Alara sat at the plaintiff's table with Julian Brandt, looking like the perfect grieving mother in a conservative blue dress. Gideon sat behind her, gray-haired and respectable in his best suit, playing the role of concerned biological father. I sat with Ingrid, wearing my only decent suit and trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Behind me, Caleb had taken time off work to show support, along with 3 of Leo's daycare teachers who had volunteered to testify about my involvement in his life. Judge Eleanor Vance was a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She'd been on the family court bench for 20 years, and Ingrid had warned me she didn't tolerate nonsense from either side. This is a complex case involving paternity, custody, and allegations of misconduct, Judge Vance began. I want to hear from both sides, but I'm warning everyone now. My only concern is the best interest of the child. Personal grievances and marital disputes are secondary to that child's welfare. Julian Brandt stood first, painting Alara as a devoted mother trapped in a loveless marriage. He portrayed Gideon as the wronged biological father who wanted to do right by his son. And he painted me as a controlling husband who discovered the affair and was now trying to punish Alara by keeping her from her child. Your Honor, the DNA evidence is clear. Gideon Voss is the biological father of this child. While Mr. Thorne may have formed an emotional attachment to the boy, that doesn't supersede the natural father's rights or the mother's custody claims. Ingrid stood for our defense, and I'd never been more grateful for her fierce reputation. Your Honor, biology doesn't make a father. Mr. Thorne has been this child's dad for 3 years. He's the man who gets up at midnight when Leo has nightmares. He's the one who knows Leo's favorite bedtime story, his food allergies, his best friends at daycare. DNA is just science, but fatherhood is love, commitment, and presence. The next 2 hours were brutal. Alara testified with tears in her eyes about her unhappy marriage and her fear of my controlling behavior. Gideon spoke about his desire to be a real father to his biological son. Both of them painted me as an obstacle to their happy family reunion. Then it was my turn. Mr. Thorne, Ingrid said gently, tell the court about your relationship with Leo. I looked at the judge, then at the gallery where Leo's teachers sat, and found my voice. Your Honor, I've been Leo's father since the day he was born. I was in the delivery room when he took his first breath. I changed his first diaper, gave him his first bottle, walked the floor with him when he had colic. I taught him to say, Daddy, and please and thank you. I've never missed a doctor's appointment or a parent-teacher conference. When he falls down, he calls for me. When he's scared, he crawls into my bed. When he laughs, it's the most beautiful sound in the world. My voice broke slightly, but I pushed through. I know the DNA says Gideon Voss contributed genetic material, but I've contributed everything else. My time, my love, my whole heart. Leo is my son in every way that matters, and I'll fight for him until my last breath. The teacher testimonies were devastating to Alara's case. Madame Dubois from Leo's daycare painted a picture of my constant involvement while noting Alara's frequent absences. Leo's pediatrician testified about my presence at every appointment while Alara often rescheduled. When Judge Vance called a recess, Ingrid squeezed my shoulder. That was perfect, Ethan. You showed them what a real father looks like. But as I watched Alara whisper urgently with her lawyer, I knew this was far from over. The legal system favored biological parents and mothers, and I was neither. I was just a man who loved a little boy more than life itself. The battle wasn't won yet, but at least now the court knew who Leo's real father was. Judge Vance returned to the courtroom after a 2-hour deliberation that felt like 2 years. Leo's future hung in the balance, and I could barely breathe as she shuffled through her notes. This has been one of the most difficult custody cases I've presided over, she began. The court has considered all testimony, evidence, and expert opinions. While DNA establishes biological paternity, the law recognizes that the best interests of the child supersede biological claims when those interests conflict. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ingrid reached over and squeezed my hand. The evidence shows that Mr. Thorne has been the primary caretaker and father figure for 3 years. Leo's teachers, pediatrician, and daycare providers all testify to Mr. Thorne's consistent involvement and the child's strong attachment to him. Conversely, the evidence suggests that removing Leo from Mr. Thorne's care would cause significant psychological harm. Judge Vance looked directly at me. However, the court also recognizes that Mrs. Alara Hope has parental rights as the biological mother. Despite her poor choices during the marriage, the room felt like it was spinning. Was I winning or losing? Therefore, the court awards primary custody to Mr. Ethan Thorne with supervised visitation rights to Mrs. Alara Hope every other weekend. Mr. Gideon Voss's petition for paternal rights is denied as his claim was not made in good faith, and his character witnesses raised concerns about his fitness as a parent. The gavel came down like thunder. I'd won. Leo was staying with me. Ingrid hugged me as tears streamed down my face. Behind us, Caleb was whooping loud enough to earn a disapproving look from a bailiff. Across the aisle, Alara sat in stunned silence while Julian Brandt whispered urgently in her ear. Outside the courthouse, Caleb wrapped me in a bear hug. Dad will be proud of you, little brother. You fought like hell for that boy. That evening, I picked up Leo from daycare like I had 1,000 times before, but everything felt different, lighter, permanent. Daddy, Madame Du Bois said, you had an important meeting. Today. I did, buddy. A very important meeting about you and me. Are we still going to live together? I knelt down and looked into those brown eyes that would never be mine biologically, but belonged to me in every other way that mattered, forever and always. Leo, you're stuck with me. He giggled and threw his arms around my neck. Good. I like being stuck with you. As we drove home, I realized something profound had happened. This battle hadn't just been about custody. It had been about defining what family really meant. 10 months later, Leo and I had settled into a new rhythm that felt more natural than anything from my previous life. The house was ours now. Alara had signed over her interest as part of the divorce settlement. Unable to afford the legal fees for a prolonged property battle, my business had slowly recovered from the social media disaster. Word spread about the court's decision, and several clients quietly returned, embarrassed about how quickly they'd abandoned me based on one-sided accusations. Leo was thriving. He'd started asking fewer questions about Alara, who'd moved to Vienna with a new boyfriend and rarely exercised her visitation rights. Her phone calls became sporadic, then stopped altogether. Daddy, look what I drew, Leo said, running up to me with a crayon masterpiece. It showed two stick figures, one tall, one small, standing in front of a house with a dog. That's beautiful, buddy. Who are these people? That's you and me and our new puppy. I've been thinking about getting a dog. The house felt too quiet sometimes. And Leo had been asking about pets since he turned 4 last month. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. Leo's birthday party still on for Saturday. Ingrid's excited to meet her honorary nephew. Caleb had started dating my former lawyer 6 months ago, which initially felt weird, but now seemed perfect. They understood each other's dedication to work and shared a dry sense of humor that kept everyone laughing at family dinners. That evening, as I tucked Leo into bed, he looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. Daddy, are you happy? The question caught me off guard. What made you think about that? You smile more now. Real smiles, not pretend ones. Once again, my son's perception amazed me. He was right. The smiles were real now. Not forced, not performed, but genuine expressions of contentment I'd forgotten were possible. Yes, buddy. I'm happy. Are you happy? Very happy. I like it being just us. Me too, Leo. Me too. As I turned off his light and headed downstairs, I realized that the man who discovered his wife's betrayal almost a year ago was gone. In his place was someone stronger, more confident, more aware of what actually mattered. I'd lost a cheating wife and a false friend, but I'd gained something infinitely more valuable. The knowledge that I could survive anything life threw at me, and the absolute certainty that Leo and I were exactly where we belonged.